everyone, welcome back to Grandpa Mark's Hobbies and build update number 3 of Revell's 1967 Corvette kit. I'm doing this for Grandpa Mark's Hobbies Facebook page. We're doing a group build page in January till when everybody's done. And you saw what I got done with the interior and everything last time. So let me clear everything out here real quick and we'll start going over what had come down. Okay, I want to start with the firewall here. I had a question asked about this little tab right here on the firewall, if that's supposed to be there or not. And what I thought he was I had a piece right here that I had to sand off. And I told him, no, it's not supposed to be there. Until I realized he was talking about this one and not that piece of flash or overmold that I had down at the bottom. And what that does is that goes on here and that kicks that firewall out just enough to where it lines it up square. So yeah, that tab is supposed to be there, and I'm glad he brought that up just so I could show everyone, because this side fits flush and then it kicks out, and it must kick out just a little bit more on that side to line everything up. And that's supposed to be there, but looking at it, you know, it's like, well, that's kind of weird. Usually the firewalls fit flush, and this one, it kicks out. So I just wanted to show everyone that, just to let everybody know what's going on there. The next thing I want to talk about is my body. Right up here, let me grab my finger here. Right up front here, they have the Cadillac emblem. Cadillac? Where did I get that? The Corvette emblem. And when I sanded that off, I used my scrunchy sander. And I didn't even realize it until I painted, but I scratched the heck out of the front end right here and right here from the sides of that thing going back and forth. And I got my Tamiya polish out, which is, it's a two-part. The coarse is in the red, and then the fine, and I tried to just polish it out. Well, I got a little aggressive, and I polished it all the way out and right down into the plastic. So I had two good size pieces of styrene sticking out on both sides of this thing. So I wet sanded it down, and I got all those scratches out, and I thought, man, I hate to just destroy this. So let's see what, and I have the gallery, this gallery Mobius, and I've been talking about it every time since I've gotten it, every time I use it. What I thought is, before I strip this thing all the way down, let me see if I can just paint from around here to around here and just paint this whole front end over again. So I didn't have the hood on, of course. I went over there, and thank goodness I didn't mix my gunmetal with anything else. This car is gunmetal X10. Because I was able to start, and what I did is I started in little tiny circles. And although this is a 0.3 millimeter tip on here, I was able to pull back and throttle just enough and get up in there close. And I didn't even take the cap off. But I was able to get in there just close enough to slowly start building up on top of the styrene until on both sides I had it to where I had good color match with everything. And I let that sit for just a couple minutes. And then I came back and I started from the center, and I went this way, and then I went this way with it, and I stopped right about here somewhere with it, and I painted this whole front end. No masking or anything. I was able to get away with it, and boy, I'll tell you what, this little airbrush, I was able to throttle it back and forth, watching the spray come out with my visor on and everything, to where I think I saved it. Now, I haven't polished it or anything with that yet. Come back to it, and all I'll have to do now is a light polish. But boy, I'll call that a win, because I thought for sure after I saw everything that I was going to have to strip this. And man, I hate stripping that, because it just came out so good. On another note, I decided to use my silver marker or silver paint and my silver gel pen and do my 427s on the sides. And they came out pretty good. I didn't think they'd stand out as much as that. And Jake's up there trying to get a treat off of Terry. She just came home. Now let's talk about the engine. I'll bring you in a little bit here. And I'll try to keep this on in the center. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some pictures, because I took pictures as I was going, because I was just wanted to get into here and build it, but I wanted to show you everything that I did and why. So what I did is, at first I drilled and wired up for the temperature sensor, and I wired up for the alternator wires too. And with those, I used my AWG 32 magnet wire, and with the alternator wire, I spun it together so that it was, two wires coming down, and I ran them down. The other one, I just ran it straight, but I painted them both with rubber black, which is XF85. And then I just laid them in, and I glued them to the back just before they drop off to disappear into the firewall. And all I'm doing is I'm going to drop that back and hide it up against the firewall, because there's no way you're going to see that, make the gap going into it. So the second picture here is my fuel line and my vacuum advance, along with the PCV line. So I ran the fuel line. What I did is I made the little U to go from the front bowl to the back bowl, and then I ran a line up, and all I did was I used my 0.3 millimeter or 0.03 millimeter solder for the fuel line, and I started at the top, and I started making little bends until I got it all the way down to the fuel pump, and that had to go on first, and then I ran the vacuum line back around and into the shroud for the distributor, and then the PVC line I ran, just bent it over and ran it around to the other side of the engine like it does, over top of all that. And that way, that's over top of the alternator line, that's over top of the sensing line, and I glued it into the driver's side of the engine on the valve cover, and then I put a little Mod Podge on there, and down the road here you'll see where that Mod Podge got painted rubber black too, and that made that little boot that goes on there. So this next picture here is, again, I Mod Podged the fuel line where it comes up and across onto the little U where it goes back and forth to the two bowls. I put a little Mod Podge on there, let it dry, and then I hit it with Tamiya's Gold Leaf to kind of make it look like brass, I guess it would be. And then I ran my throttle, I'm pretty sure, no. I ran the vacuum line and the PCV line. That's when I ran them around to the side. So I'm sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. Then I did the throttle spring, which is just my magnet wire again, wrapped around the smallest drill bit that I have and into a spring shape. I took the one piece that came out over and I cut it off short. The long piece I cut to the length to where it would go down to one of the valve cover bolts. And I just glued that on underneath the little piece that would have been the throttle body on there, on the carburetor. And then I just took a piece of the 0.3 or 0.03 millimeter solder, and I glued that to where the other side of it to make that like the throttle cable. And I ran that long and down, just down the back, so it's going to go underneath everything, because this plug wires will go over top of that. And then I just ran it long onto the transmission belt for right now. I'll cut it off before I put it in place, but I didn't want to cut it off yet because I might pull it up a little bit and make that to where it's visible going into the firewall. We'll see. The last thing on the engine was the spark plug wires, and I glued them all into the head first, like I always do. And then I slowly worked from the back to the front because firing order didn't matter on this one, which I really liked. Ran them into the shroud. I drilled 2 holes in the shroud, big enough to take all 4 of those wires with a little to spare. And then I just started on one side and I ran them all the way back, glued them in. Well, I didn't even glue them in. I just pushed them into the shroud. And then the 2 in the front, I ran them up to where that little bracket is to hold the wires, the little wire harness, and then back and ran them in on both sides. And then the last thing I did was I took that PVC line on the passenger side and glued it in and bent it over and tucked it up underneath the carb. It's out of the way, and you'll never see it to where it's supposed to go anyhow because the air cleaner is going to be on top of this, which is a dang shame because that's going to hide a lot of the detail that's on this engine, which bring you back here, which Revell really did a great job of detailing this thing. I mean, it's fantastic. Oh, my oil filter is somewhere, God only knows where. So that's a piece of sprue that I just kind of rounded the bottom off and then put the decal on. Worked out good. I left it white because I wanted to go with the white one. I remember that the kit one had the little bolt on the bottom like it would have been a canister, but in 67 you could have gone both ways with that. So I decided with this, it's just, I'm not going to try to do that bolt on the bottom. No way in hell. So I just left it the white and put that on there with a little bit of microset, and it held on there great. So there's the engine. I have one more hole drilled on this side of the carb, and what that'll be is that'll be for the let me pull it over here. That'll be for the master cylinder on the brake. That comes down and that goes into just below the carburetor. And then let me bring it into focus. I forgot I was way pulled in here. I painted that with Tamiya's tungsten gold. I painted the top tungsten gold, and then the bottom I painted the metallic gray, not gunmetal, the metallic gray, just so I have a little offset between that and the body. And then panel lined everything up. I drilled 2 holes in this side of the brake so I can run my lines down. I'll put little hoopies in them and run them down and out and just bury them along the firewall. They'll disappear, and then underneath I'll make it to where it looks like they show back up. So it's all about Hollywood when you're doing these. But the engine, I am totally stoked and happy. Oh, I forgot, I did add my dipstick to the engine also. Ran it down in between the 2 parts of the exhaust manifold. So I'm happy with this. It came out pretty darn good. I am glad that I'd painted that flat aluminum for the intake manifold, because it does give it a lot more life than just the red did. The carb, I painted the bowls, the titanium gold, and also where the linkage would go with the titanium gold, and then hit it with panel liner. The rest of it's flat aluminum. So there we go. Easy peasy. Took me a couple hours to do all the hoses, lines, and everything else, and most of that time was prep work, painting them all and all that stuff. So there we go with that, and now let's start talking about a couple of small parts, and I'll let you go. One of them that I'm really happy with is my water bottle, and what that is flat white on the top, well, the black for the cap, flat white for the top, gloss black for the bracket, just because I wanted to, again, add a little bit of life between the firewall, the fender well, and the the bracket for this. So I used the gloss black on there. And then this is the flat white with a couple of drops of sky blue, which is Tamiya's X14. And I don't even know how many drops of what to get it, but I just mixed it to the color that it looks like windshield washer fluid. And I let that dry overnight and then came back and I hit all that with a coat of quick shine just to give it the plastic look. And I'm pretty happy with that. I will hit this with pastels a little bit just to dull it back a little bit more, but that'll be down the road just before I put it on. Another thing I did is I put the radiator assembly together. That went together really super simple. It's 3 pieces. Buried the radiator. I painted the top with the flat aluminum and then took my gold gel pen and put just a dot on the center of that radiator cap. And then I took a little piece of 0.03 millimeter that I had left over that I cut off of my spark plug lines and did the overflow on this. I will put hose on this, but I'm going to wait until I get it put in so I don't run it in the wrong spot. I've done that before. So there's my radiator. My underside, my linkage and everything's doing pretty good. I painted a bunch of with flat aluminum, touched up, give it a little bit of life, so when you look on the bottom, it's just not a bunch of gloss and flat black. I know they're not the right colors, but it helps bring a little bit of life and a little bit of, I don't know, excitement, I guess you'd call it, to the bottom. The springs, I did the same thing. Just dry brushed them. Where I messed up, I'd go back in with the black and repaint them. They came out pretty darn good. The radiator, I got the radiator hoses. I did the belts for them, or the clamps for them. The battery, see if I can get that in focus for you. I'm not going to run wires for that. There's no sense where it's put. Those wires are going to have to pretty much run the way they are on there anyhow. But I did paint the clamps on there, the flat aluminum, and then let that dry for a day or so and hit it with my panel liner. That really popped the details on that. I use flat red for the caps. Let that dry for a few days. And then the very centers of those, I took a pencil and just made a mark in there because those caps were actually rings and not solid. And I just hit it to do it. And then I was messing around a little bit with my white pencil, and I rubbed it on there and then rubbed off on the dull coat just to give it a little bit of a look. I haven't put the decal on here yet. I just haven't gotten to that. Next, we're getting close to being ready to put this together. All I did here was just a little bit of flat aluminum, just marking things up, getting them to where they're ready to go in and look good. I did a flat aluminum dry brush on the drive shafts going to the wheels. I think that looks really good. Gives it a little bit of life and gives it a little metal look to it, like it's been used. Happy with that. And then the last thing, and I will let you go, is my front grille. And I took my what I always use on it, my accent, real black, which apple barrel or whatever, the black is just as good. But I painted that in there and then came back with a toothpick and kind of scratched it out a little bit. And I think it looks really good. So that's about ready to drop in there. I will put a little bit of quick shine on there, and that'll dull out this chrome just a smidge, and it'll set that black in there too. So there we go. It's been a busy few days. Got a lot done. We're getting ready to start putting this bad boy together. I'm still stoked about this interior. This is the best I've ever done. The engine I'm stoked with too. this came out really good. There's some really, really, really good detail put in this engine. So if you take your time and you want to really add a bunch of stuff to it, it's simple to do. All you need are the small pin vices and a couple different sizes of wires. They might not be the perfect size, but they look the part, and I think they look good. So there we go. I will let you go with that. Y'all have a great day and a better tomorrow. Thanks again for following along.